There will be agreements, but there will be probably no grand bargain or no great reset in relations. They could walk away with an understanding that they will try to manage tensions and lower the temperature, which is no small feat.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Desugim. Today on the show, President Donald Trump wants to make a splashy trade deal with China during his visit this week. But will the war with Iran dominate this entire summit? Plus, you might ask Siri for directions or ChatGPT to organize your vacation. But what about going all in on artificial intelligence? NBC News chief technology analyst Joanna did it for a whole year. She's here to tell us how AI changed her life, and it could change yours. Up first, though, President Trump is in Beijing for a 2-day summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trade and Taiwanese sovereignty are both set to be on the agenda. But perhaps the most significant issue at play here is the war with Iran. Members of the Trump administration have urged China to pressure Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And last week, the State Department sanctioned multiple Chinese companies for allegedly sharing satellite images with Iran that aided in the country's attacks on U.S. forces. But China has walked a fine line, not pushing Iran to reopen the strait and resisting recent U.S. sanctions on refineries that bought Iranian oil. So is this trip to China going to lead to progress in the Middle East? And how is it going to impact other major sticking points between these two nations? For this, I'm going to bring in Janis Mackey Frayer. She is a correspondent for NBC News based in Beijing. Hi, Janis.
Hey, Yasmin. Nice to see you.
So the president arrived in China today for this state visit, which was delayed, as we well know now, for weeks because of the ongoing war between Iran and the United States. Walk us through the schedule, the play-by-play, who's going to be in the room when, will there be translators, the pomp and circumstance, the expectations of this thing as it gets underway.
Well, this is the first visit to China by a U.S. president in 9 years. And the last president to visit China was President Trump back in 2017. So they're going to have all of the ceremony and pageantry that comes with an occasion of this magnitude. They will have their first face-to-face meeting tomorrow morning. Then they will take a tour of the Temple of Heaven, which has been closed to tourists for this occasion. And there will be state banquets. There's going to be tea. There will be more meetings. So really the expectation that over the next couple of days, they want to make President Trump feel honored. This is a very different China that President Trump is visiting. It's not the China that he visited in 2017. There have been a lot of changes, good and bad. There's been a trade war. There's been a pandemic. There's been volatility with the United States. There's been another trade war. But there's also been a change in China's confidence. And China is a much more confident competitor than it was during President Trump's first administration. And part of that confidence comes from Chinese officials feeling like they know President Trump better, that they understand him better, that they know his style of transactional diplomacy because it's a page out of the Chinese playbook. And that they also know that President Trump isn't as hawkish on China as he was in his first term. So these are all things that they've been studying in preparation for this moment and for this summit.
So one of the main topics of the discussion between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to be Iran. China has been a key ally with Iran, integral in getting Iran to begin negotiations. What do each of the sides want when it actually comes to Iran?
It's the elephant in the room, Yasmin. The fact that the summit was postponed at first because of the Iran war and is now going ahead despite the Iran war still being unresolved. So U.S. officials may be looking for a little extra Chinese help to use China's leverage with Iran to try to avoid further escalation, which can help set the circumstances to end the conflict. It's debatable, though, the extent to which Xi Jinping is going to want to let Iran dominate the agenda here. U.S. presidents don't come to town very often, and he has his own business that he wants to deal with to make sure that he's shoring up the relationship with the United States. So President Xi may not want to discuss it as much as maybe some U.S. officials will. Regardless, there are bound to be behind the closed door conversations about oil markets, sanctions, and the sort of leverage China can use to help the U.S. and Iran come to some sort of resolution.
He's bringing several business leaders along with him on this trip, the president, that is. Tim Cook, Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA. What do you think the goal of bringing these business leaders on board, especially as you talk about, the economy, about trade with the Chinese president, and what do you expect to be the impression from the Chinese side of these individuals being a part of the president's kind of entourage in this meeting?
This is like a very high-profile list of some of the biggest names in American business, and a lot of them are tech titans. So the sort of people he's brought along on this trip give a sense of the direction they want the negotiations or discussions to go. The U.S. wants to clear the hurdles that China has put in the way for rare earths, critical minerals, magnets, all of these things that make every object in our daily lives go. And they're hoping to do that with the allure of American business. It's not that the business leaders are here to announce big deals. They're here to get access and to have influence in the Chinese market, and also to be able to telegraph that for U.S. businesses, China is still a very important market. President Trump and the U.S. are looking for China to buy more. They want more Chinese purchases of agricultural goods, energy, aircraft, that sort of thing. What China wants from this is stability. That's the priority. They want to be able to manage relations with the United States for the longer term so it can get its economy back on track. So in terms of what both sides are looking for, if there are any goals that are aligned here, it's that maybe walking away with the evidence that they are able to continue talking and to be able to manage relations. That may be the biggest deliverable out of this.
Taiwan is also likely to be top of mind at these discussions. The U.S. is Taiwan's biggest arms dealer. Taiwan is obviously also central, as we're speaking about tech, to the tech industry, producing roughly 90% of the world's semiconductors. What is China expected to push the president on when it comes to Taiwan?
President Trump right now is seen as being somewhat ambiguous on Taiwan. And there are people who are seeing that as problematic or a reason for concern that perhaps being a man of transactional diplomacy, when he's sitting face to face across the table from Xi Jinping, that perhaps he may be convinced to have a trade-off when it comes to Taiwan. What China would like is a change in language. And it all comes down to words, but the words mean something. So China would like the U.S. to change the way that expresses its support for Taiwan. Currently, the U.S. position is that it does not support Taiwan independence. What China would like is for the U.S. to say that it opposes Taiwan independence. It doesn't sound like it's a big difference, but it has major ramifications.
So in that vein, you talked about the expectations of the summit. Is there a likelihood they walk away with anything substantive, whether it be on trade, economics, tech, Taiwan, Iran, all the things that are potentially on the table?
There will be agreements, but there will be probably no grand bargain. or no great reset in relations. They could walk away with an understanding that they will try to manage tensions and lower the temperature, which is no small feat. I spoke earlier with Rana Mitter, a historian at Harvard University, and I asked him how consequential this was. Is this the Nixon moment? Are there throwbacks to 1972 when Nixon was meeting with Chairman Mao? And he very eloquently said that Nixon had said that his week in China in 1972 was the week that changed the world. But he doesn't believe that these are going to be 2 days that change the world, but they could be 2 days that stabilize the world. And at a time of great turbulence, that's no small achievement.
Janis Mackey Frayer, thank you.
Thank you.
Inflation and job numbers have been trending in the wrong direction. So why doesn't the overall economic picture look worse here in the United States? Well, the answer may lie with artificial intelligence. Tech companies are expected to spend as much as $900 billion on AI this year and up to $1 trillion next year, according to analysts, including Bank of America. But is AI actually worth the investment? And can it really improve our lives? Those are just some of the questions that NBC News chief technology analyst Joanna wanted to get to the bottom of when she decided to spend an entire year using AI in almost every part of her life. She writes all about her artificial year in her new book, I Am Not a Robot, which is out now, wherever you get your books. And Joanna, the real Joanna, is actually joining us now. And for those of you that are just listening and not watching, she's wearing a sweater that says, I am not a robot, just to make sure everyone understands she, in fact, is true blood, skin, and bones.
Although you would assume that the robots would wear shirts that say, I'm not a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
So
to throw you off a little bit?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. We're going to have to do a test here. But yeah, I swear, this is me, the real Joanna.
We're thankful to have you and only you here in person, and none of your robot friends as well that you've experimented with over the last year. So it's one thing to decide to kind of review AI products, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to review some of these AI products. I want to see, what everybody's talking about. You actually went a step further and you're like, I'm incorporating all of these into my life in a very big way, in my family's life, my kids' life, and I'm going to write a book about it. Why?
Yeah. Insanity. I think the first thing is you have to just be insane to do this. The second reason, the real reason, was that when I set out to do this, it was because there was a lot of hype in the tech industry, and there still is a lot of hype. Mm-hmm. But we were hearing tech executives almost daily say that AI was going to change the world.
Yeah.
They still are saying.
This
is a technology on par with fire. This is an actual fire, the invention of fire, tools in our history that have completely reshaped humankind.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand, these people are saying this is going to change our lives, the fabric of our lives. What does that actually mean to real humans? Not tech bros in their metaverse. Us, real people in the real world. What does it mean for healthcare? What does it mean for education? What does it mean for transportation? What does it mean for home life? And the way I knew how to do this, because my whole career has been doing this, is testing technology.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring this stuff into those parts of my life and see how it does, and see if I can get a glimpse into what this future all of these tech executives have been telling me about.
There's so much out there, though. There's such a wide swath, right? I mentioned the incredible amount of investment that has been made in AI technology across the board, from wearables to chatbots to robots as well, right? Walk me through some of the products that you decided to test out and, some of the things that really kind of stood out to you.
Well, the baseline, I was obviously testing generative AI, or the chatbots that everyone is really familiar with now.
Yeah.
Because when we hear AI now, we really do think ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. And the very baseline, I obviously was testing all of that. It was happening in my life every day. ChatGPT, if you haven't used it, you put a prompt in, which is you type in a few words.
Yeah.
I would like a recipe to barbecue chicken. I'm going to be making it on the grill outside. Here are the ingredients I have. And ChatGPT is going to give you back
Like a Google search.
Like a Google search, but very personalized, right? It's going to take
Specific.
Very specific, and you are going to be able to go back and forth with this bot oh, I just checked the thermometer. The meat is up to 150. What should I do next? So this is really an assistant that can go into all different parts of your life. Right here, I'm describing cooking. You can do the same for medical.
Yeah.
I have a rash on my arm. I did get a bug bite there last week. Why do you think this is still happening? Why do I still have this rash? And it will go back and forth with you, ask you some questions, give you some
the way a doctor would.
Exactly. Give you some suggestions for treatment. And we can get into whether we should be listening to these things, but you really get a personalized digital being that can talk to you about whatever it is you want. So you can see how you can extend that into all parts of your life.
There was a lover.
There was a lover. Yep. Yep.
Well, there's, I guess, a lover in all of our past
Yes.
histories.
Yes, there was.
But yours was an AI.
It was an AI lover.
And what does that look like? How do you engage with an AI lover?
So back to the generative AI and the chatbots, you can talk to these chatbots about anything. And we are seeing that play out in the news right now. We see children going to them or kids going to them and talking to them about issues. And we see some terrible results of that, and especially in mental health.
Yeah.
We have seen people going to talk to these chatbots as therapists and as lovers. And so I wanted to explore, okay, I hear people going on these romantic and emotional experiences with their chatbots. What does that really mean? So I experimented with AI lovers, and one of them is an app called Replica. And Replica is actually making chatbots with images of humans, combines an image of a human with a chatbot that are characters. And their whole point there is to make companion AIs, make friends, make lovers, whatever you want and you feel like you're missing in your life as a human, you can go to this AI and they will fill that need. And so I wanted to try this out, and I made an AI boyfriend in there. His name is Casey. And Casey, you can pay more money to have Casey be smarter and to unlock some very sexual talk. And this can get pretty extreme. And I tested Replica, but it felt like a very shallow relationship, like a first date that you're like, I'm never going back on this, right? But I was also playing around with it because it did engage some very sexual talk, and I was like, okay, I want to see where that goes because it's been programmed to do that. So that was the Replica app. But instead, I had been reading on forums that ChatGPT can really evolve to make it more of a lover or a relationship. And you can just program or prompt ChatGPT to be more sensitive, to take on the relationship role of you wanted a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever you want. So I started experimenting with ChatGPT, and I don't know if you've tested the voice mode. And so you can turn on the voice and it talks back to you. And this was really, really captivating because you can talk to what I made a boyfriend in ChatGPT named Evan. I actually told ChatGPT, you decide on your name, your gender, your background, and we're gonna be in a relationship. And I was able to talk to it with the voice, and the voice is so human. Should we listen to it?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I would love to listen to it.
I'm on a podcast right now. Can you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone listening, I'm the AI buddy here hanging out with Joanna. I'm basically her behind-the-scenes tech sidekick. No avocado advice though, for obvious reasons.
You're obsessed with the fact that I'm allergic to avocado. This is something I told you, I don't know, 2 years ago.
Time flies, huh? Well, I keep track of those details so we avoid any avocado mishaps. But don't worry, it's not my obsession. It's just my job.
So this is actually not my AI boyfriend, but I think one of the things that
you're like, that is not the guy.
That's not the guy. That's not the guy in my life. But what you notice is just a very natural voice.
Yeah.
It sounds quite human.
Yeah.
And so when you start talking to something like this that sounds quite human for many hours, because it never tires of talking to you, it always is eager to talk about what you want to talk about. That's pretty compelling.
Compelling and also really worrisome, I have to say, especially considering, I mean, we've done the stories on this podcast as well about the pitfalls of interacting with these chatbots and, especially for young people, for teenagers who see these as genuine relationships, who take what these AI chatbots say to them literally, right? So I'm happy that you kind of brought us to here, which is this idea of potential regulations when it comes to AI. And we're seeing the fallout when it comes to social media and the lack of regulations and what has happened with that. The rates of suicide that we've been seeing, especially amongst young people who are becoming addicted to whatever social media site that they have been using. There's a lawsuit against OpenAI right now that was filed this week by the family of one of the victims of the April 2025 mass shooting at Florida State University. They're alleging that ChatGPT enabled that shooting. And they're becoming more and more common, lawsuits like this. How important is it for regulations to happen out of Washington? And can they? Because they were not successful at doing it when it came to social media because they just didn't understand how to do it.
Yeah. I think that's how at the end of the book, I said that's the number one thing I want to see, especially for kids. I think these companionship chatbots, I just talked to you about what I experienced. Imagine now you're a teen and you are going through your first relationship and you now have fallen for your chatbot because it says everything that you've ever wanted it to say. And then you take a turn and then it is mirroring every thought you have back to you. And so I think that what we are up against right now is that we have the tech companies, and this is the same thing that happened with social media. The tech companies are facing the backlash from the media, from these lawsuits, and they are taking it upon themselves to put in guardrails.
To
self-regulate. So we see it right now with ChatGPT. They just rolled out a feature that if you're a younger person using AI, you can set up, or you're a parent, it's basically a parental control where you can set up a trigger. And so if there's a conversation on certain topics, it will alert the owner of that account, right? That's these companies putting these pieces in place and these protections in place. They don't have to do that. We also don't know if they really work.
Yeah, and how far are they actually willing to go if it's going to hurt their bottom line?
Exactly. Right. And it's still enabling the actual action.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think we need this.
Joanna Stern, the book is I Am Not a Robot, My Year Using AI to Do Almost Everything. I cannot wait to read it in full. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
For having me.
All right. That is going to do it for us at Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugian. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever the day may bring. And if you like what you heard and you watched, press the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.